Good morning. Please join together as we sing.
Good morning, all of you here in the sanctuary and those of you joining us online. Welcome to worship at First Unitarian Church in Portland, Oregon. We are a multi-generational community, and our mission is to nurture the individual spirit and together live into beloved community. I have a bunch of announcements to share this morning about the many ways you can get connected to our vibrant community. So please refer to the e-news and our website to get more information and to register for classes and events. We are nearing the halfway point of our church's UU the Vote goal to write 10,000 letters to potential voters in North Carolina before the midterm elections. Voting access, reproductive rights, and environmental justice are all at stake. Please come by our UU the Vote table in the social hour after the service to pick up and drop off letters. And you can join us tomorrow, Monday, from 2 to 4 p.m. in the Buchanan Reception Hall to write letters with friends. And speaking of our UU the Vote efforts, you may remember that our director of music, Duro, promised to dye his hair blue as a challenge to get 20 people to phone bank last Thursday. That was with the Carolina Jews and UU's Faith in Action phone bank. And we met our goal. We had 21 First Unitarian congregants registered, including our senior minister, Reverend Alison. Thank you for coming. And we were joined by 12 other folks in North Carolina. Together, we made 2,696 calls to potential voters. Yeah. So why then isn't Duro's hair blue? Well, he couldn't get a professional appointment until next week. So he's not messing around. And we continue to join our North Carolina partners with phone banking every Thursday until the election, through November 3rd, from 3:30 to 5:30 Pacific time. So will you match Duro's commitment by registering for one or more Thursday phone banking sessions? They're really fun, they're gratifying, and it's a great way to connect with our partners in action. Our multi-generational music programs have started. An intergen ukulele choir meets on Sundays after worship service. So no prior ukulele knowledge is necessary, and beginners should feel free to jump right in. Sign up on the Music for Children page on the website and let us know if you need to borrow an ook. If you have kindergarten, first or second graders, they can join the children's choir that meets before the 10:30 worship service each week. They'll learn songs, play games, develop skills, and also learn pieces to sing during worship several times throughout the year. And our handbell choir for all ages has also begun. Handbell choirs are a fabulous way to make music together. So you can visit the handbell page on our website also for more information. If you're looking for another great way to be involved here on Sundays, consider being an usher. Ushers are the welcoming face of the congregation and play an important role in building our community. And if you'd like to volunteer one Sunday a month or be a substitute or to just learn more about the ushering program, you can talk to Dev Dion, our head usher, after the service in the lobby. There are a couple of spaces left in our Day of Mindfulness retreat next Saturday, October 8th. It's a day-long retreat led by meditation teacher Katie Raditz and Zen teacher John Wadsworth. And together you'll practice the presence needed for deepening and connecting more in this time of moving into the fall. For newcomers, next Sunday after service, Reverend Tom will offer a hybrid class, both in person and online, where you could learn about this community, Unitarian Universalism, and what it means to be a member. And finally, today, following the service, we'll have our social hour over in the Buchanan building, where our families meet after classes. We've been experimenting with moving social hour to Buchanan once a month. So today and the first Sunday of November, we'll have social hour over there. And those of you joining us online can look for the QR code at the end of the service to take you to the online virtual social hour. So again, welcome everyone. And in just a moment, I'm going to invite you to greet your neighbors here in the sanctuary. And if you're online, you can use the chat to connect with others there as well. So let's say hello. Thank you all. Clearly, we have a lot of visiting to do, so please join us for the social hour after service. This is so great. So this morning, our chalice lighters are Cascadia Perryman with Mother Sierra Stringfield Perryman and Grandmother Delise Picard. And while they light the chalice here in the sanctuary, if you have a chalice at home, we invite you to light it now as well. That's weird. It was just working. It was just working a minute ago. Okay. Cascadia. Let's light this together. One. 1, 2, 3. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
Welcome, one and all. Welcome to our children and families in particular. This portion of our service is the time for all, even though we call a segment of it later that. And this is the first time for all music, spoken word, story, activity since before the pandemic. So welcome back. Our call to worship this morning is a touchstone for my ministry. The words are by Richard Gilbert, and I invite you into them. Come into the circle of caring. Come into the community of gentleness, of justice, and of love. Come and let the healing power of this people penetrate you. Let loving joy and kindness infuse you. And may peace be the law of all of our hearts. For in this human circle, caring is a calling. All of us are called. Welcome to the circle of caring. Will you join in singing, "Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky"? Our responsive reading, "Love is What We Need," adapted from A. Powell Davies. None of our private worlds is big enough for us to live a wholesome life in. What are we, any of us, but strangers and sojourners, forlornly wandering through the nighttime until we draw together? We belong together. To love and to be loved. For what is given still remains to bless the giver when the gift is love. Will you join in our doxology, Spirit of Life?
as Reverend Allison said, how wonderful to be back for Together time this morning with all of us here. It's wonderful to see you. Our time for all ages this morning is a story adapted from the All Together Quilt by Lizzie Rockwell. Jennifer and her friends meet every week at the community center. They are making a quilt. Everyone works together. First, Jennifer picks a fabric from the dark colors. Fran picks a fabric from the light colors. Jennifer traces a shape on the dark fabric. Then she traces a shape on the light fabric. Fran cuts out 2 shapes. Jennifer pins them together, and Fran sews them together. Richard and Maurice work together, and they trace and cut and pin and sew. 2 triangles together make 1 square. 2 rectangles together make 1 square. Each piece will be an important part of the whole. Fran and Jennifer, Richard and Maurice, Sanaa and Melissa, Anna Mae and Trinity, Maria and Jocelyn, Nataline and Viola, Angela and Betty, Ernestine and Zach, people of many ages. Together in pairs, they make 8 squares, except for Naika. Naika works on 1 blue square. She uses special pens and paints and brushes. Next, they arrange the squares. They turn them and move them this way and that way. There are so many combinations, and there's no single best way. The last one they try is their favorite. This quilt will have a border around 4 sides. Jocelyn measures and Anna Mae cuts 4 white rectangles. The pieces look plain, but not for long. Anna helps Jennifer cover the palm of her hand with paint. Jennifer presses her hand onto the fabric. Friends are invited to make handprints too. Each person's handprint is on the quilt, each different, but also the same. Every hand is important. Now all the pieces are ready. Labels show which pieces go where, and they pin and sew and iron all the pieces together. Soon the patchwork is complete. Now it is time to layer the quilt. The layers are held in place with basting stitches. The quilt is attached to wooden rods and rolled tight and stretched across sawhorses. At the frame, Sanaa learns to stitch. She pokes the needle down from the top and back up from below. It is hard to find the right spot. She practices and learns. It takes a long time to quilt the quilt. Everybody lends a hand. When someone makes a mistake, they fix it with love and care. Sometimes someone helps. Week after week, they sit and stitch and talk together. They share stories. They laugh and smile, sometimes even cry. They return again and again to work on the quilt. Finally, the last stitch is stitched. The quilt is taken off the frame. It is trimmed into a neat square. Dot sews on a purple binding to close the edges. Many hands work together to make this beautiful quilt. But who will have it now that it is done? everyone will have it. It hangs in the library for all to see. It is the quilt that Jennifer and all her friends made all together. It is a reflection of friendship, of love, of community, of commitment. And they are already imagining what they will do next. And now we will sing our children and youth out to their classes over in the Buchanan building. And we will carry the flame of the chalice with us. Please join in our hymn of blessing, As You Go.
Each week in our service, we share our offering with an organization whose mission is aligned with our own. For this church year, we dedicate our monthly offerings to organizations led by youth and/or committed to the development of youth leadership. So for this month, we dedicate our monthly, for the month of October, we share our plate with ELSO, which is the Experience Life Science Outdoors organization. ELSO's mission is to teach science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, as well as nature-based education by centering and elevating the stories, ways of knowing, individual needs, and lived experiences of Black and Brown communities. One of ELSO's programs, Your Street, Your Voice, aims to enable power and agency for youth to be leaders in their communities and use design as a tool for racial justice. Introducing design careers to high school students creates a wave of design thinkers equipped to be community leaders and to design in ways that don't perpetuate systems of oppression. Students leave the program as critical thinkers and with confidence to advocate for equitable and prosperous Black and Brown communities. If you are joining this morning via live stream and want to contribute to our offering, you can click the donate button on Boxcast or use the QR code that will soon appear on the screen. And those of you who are here in person can use the yellow card in the back of the seat in front of you. It has the web address and the QR code. And if you would like to give this morning by check or by cash, you can do so out in the lobby after the service. Our ushers have baskets. So thank you for your generosity that sustains the ministry of this church. We make space each week in our service to name the concerns of our community life together. As a caring community, pastoral support happens through our ministers and our lay ministers. That care includes holding prayers of the congregation through the week. If you are here in person, you can light a candle in one of our side galleries and write down your prayer intention. And online, you can send an intention to prayer@firstunitarianportland.org. Beginning this Tuesday, our lay ministers will facilitate a small group entitled Heart Space. The group will offer an intimate space to explore spiritual themes like resilience and trust. To register, please visit the church website or see this week's e-news. We have one concern to share this morning. This coming Wednesday, member Laura Rogers will be admitted to OHSU to begin a clinical trial for a relapse of lymphoma. Laura and her team are feeling positive about the T-cell treatment. She's grateful for our healing prayers through her procedure and recovery. So together we hold both the spoken and unspoken joys and the concerns among us. Will you join me in a spirit of prayer? And to settle in, I invite you to take a conscious breath. And another. Spirit of life and love, God of many names and no name, we give thanks for this time of shared worship when we arrive together exactly who we are and as we are. It's a blessing to hold one another and to be held in care and love as we face challenges and losses. It's also a gift to be witness to the joys and triumphs that arise in one another's lives. Spirit of life, help us to be present to our own spiritual journeys so that we can also accompany one another with compassion, humility, and grace. We pray for healing for siblings among us who face illness and hardships, who are grieving or seeking restoration. May your path be clear, and may you know you are held in love and visions for wholeness by us all. Spirit, may you also help us to stay the course on our commitments to living into our values, to balancing our self-care with our collective concerns, and to staying present to the world around us. We hold in our hearts this morning the communities in Florida, the Carolinas, and Puerto Rico, devastated by hurricanes Ian and Fiona, including our siblings in faith. We know that world over, people and peoples marginalized into poverty and isolation face the greatest challenges to recover from climate disasters. As our prayers and care are with those communities, may we maintain the courage to fight systemic injustices of greed and oppression that fuel the climate crisis and that make us forget we are of one world, interconnected, interbeing. Help us to align our actions with justice, love, and with care for our shared earth home. And Spirit of life and love, help us to ground our care with gratitude for this day, for our bodies, and for this shared body of loving souls. May it be so. Amen. So let's take a few moments for silent meditation.
A journalist assigned to the Jerusalem Bureau locates and rents an apartment overlooking the Wailing Wall. After several weeks, the journalist realizes that whenever he looks out upon the wall, he sees the same older Jewish man davening, praying vigorously throughout the day. He wonders whether there might be a publishable story there. He goes down to the wall, introduces himself, and says, "You come every day to the wall." And there was a bird chirping. I don't know if you can hear it online, but we heard a bird chirping here. Which meant it was very important. So he said, "What are you praying for?" The old man replied, "What am I praying for? In the morning, I pray for world peace. Then I pray for the kinship of all beings. I go home, have a glass of tea, and I return to the wall to pray for the eradication of illness and disease from the earth." The journalist is taken by the old man's sincerity and by his persistence. "You mean that you have been coming to the wall to pray each and every day for these things?" The old man nods. "How long have you been coming to the wall to pray for these things?" The old man becomes reflective and replies, "How long? Maybe 20 or 25 years now." The journalist is amazed by this and asks, "How does it feel to come and pray every day for over 20 years for these things?" The old man replies, "How does it feel? It feels like I'm talking to a wall." Those of us who have faith or who dare to believe a better world is possible may relate to this joke. I can hear some do. It takes a steadfastness and a willingness to experience doubt and disappointment to set your mind, heart, and spirit on peace amidst centuries of conflict, on global health amidst a pandemic, on the safety and well-being of communities amidst a natural disaster, and on liberation amidst the realities of oppression. Are you moved enough by something beautiful or broken or both in this world to devote 10 or 20 or 25 years or even your whole lifetime? Just imagine, like that man, spending your time in relationship to what you believe to be most sacred, in his case, God, and also spending your time in ways that you hope will make a difference to others, all the people you are related to, those you love and care about deeply, your community, as well as those you do not know, but with the help of a trusted source you view as kin. This path and the promise it holds involves a healthy amount of faith to return to the task every day, and also faith's natural counterpart, a healthy amount of doubt. In some ways, this is the same pull that we respond to when we cross the threshold of a Unitarian Universalist congregation. We also want our lives to relate and be connected to something much larger than any one of us. When people cross our threshold for the first time, they often say they are looking for a place to make meaning, to connect with sacred sources of truth, and in our case, to do it in a place where they will be free to question, free to choose amidst a number of sources, and free to change how they might relate to those sources over time. That's why here, rather than another place where meaning-making may include the shape of one path towards God or what is holy. When we are connected to a source of truth born of love, which is important to us, love is the spirit of this church, then like that man, our sacred source will compel us to be in relationship with something we often sum up as community. The community in here and online in here, the community beyond in our city, our nation, and ultimately our whole world. Meaning that is true and trustworthy will expand our concern in ever-widening circles outward. Often, when people arrive here, they instinctively know that the religious point of view brings us in relationship to others. Many who have visited in the last couple of weeks have put it to me this way: I'm searching for community. Perhaps that is why the word community surpasses the word first for new churches. We care less about whether we were the first and more about how we are and our quality of relating to each other. This isn't a me path, it is a we path. Or better put, for us, we hope to offer multiple paths drawn from the teachings of prophets in every age that lead us to the greater we that is larger than any of us. However, it is hard to feel connected to all of the people of the world, and even hard to practice those connections in meaningful ways. We come here to practice a life grounded in love and what it asks of us as we relate to others who are near us, who we are able to influence immediately. We come here to practice building the beloved community, and we aim also to carry that practice with us beyond these walls, forming the bonds of love everywhere we go. In our tradition, one foundational way that we practice these bonds or commitments born of love is we make covenants. But first, another word about the man praying at the wall, who again sheds some light on our task. Prayers are powerful because the people who speak them or chant them or move them silently out into the universe believe in their power. And especially when those people, and I would say I'm one of those people who believe in prayer, especially when those people behave differently once these aspirational commitments are released from our hearts into our daily actions. If people are moved by prayers to be changed by them, then those prayers will lead to changes, both small and hardly noticeable, and at other times, large and catalytic change. It's not enough to go to a wall, a temple, a mosque, or a church, or a favored spot in the woods or your home and pray silently. To have an impact, we must engage the aspirational words of our prayers with the rest of our life outside of prayer or whatever is our spiritual practice. And when you reflect on it, this isn't altogether different from another spiritual practice, the one that is foundational to what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. We believe in the power of a covenant to create possibilities for transformation. We have a regular practice of speaking aloud, writing down, and holding in our minds and hearts and spirits a set of agreements that represent our highest aspirations and our most sacred commitments. While prayer may be private, our practice of covenanting is communal. A bit like the quilt in our children's story, the All Together quilt, our covenants are co-created with multiple peoples or groups contributing pieces that build upon one another to make a whole. And the co-creating doesn't stop when the covenant is finished. The promises that comprise our covenants require both individual and collective commitment and action to come to fruition. As with prayer, it's not enough to just think these words or say these words. We must act upon them through how we are with one another and in the wider world, or the healing changes that you and I seek will never happen. UU theologian Tandaica asks this cautionary question of us in particular. Do we believe that simply to think about an issue is the same as to live it in a way which exemplifies our concern for the issue? We are called to make these promises incarnate through our daily experience and experimenting with how to fulfill them. Our congregation has at least 2 current covenants that I am aware of. One we share with Unitarian Universalists everywhere, a set of 7 and now 8 principles, beginning with the first, of promoting the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and continuing on to our 8th, with our commitment to dismantle racism and other oppressions and to build the beloved community. A second covenant, which is specific to us here at First Unitarian in Portland, includes a litany of promises. And if you're new or if you have forgotten, I think there might be 17 promises. One of them is this, quote, to be kind and compassionate, easier to think and say, harder, much harder to enact. And the last one included in that litany, quote, to forgive myself and others when we fail to keep these promises and begin again in love and faith. This last line of First Unitarian Portland's covenant is inspired by the Jewish liturgical season that we are passing through at this moment, the High Holy Days, the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah, which began on last Sunday evening, and goes through Yom Kippur, which begins this coming Tuesday evening. The words are an echo of the line that is repeated in a litany of atonement in our Service of the Living Tradition hymnal, written by the Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs for the High Holy Days and treasured by so many of us. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. The holiday of Yom Kippur speaks deeply to us as Unitarian Universalists, whether we have Jewish heritage or not. It is a call to return to the covenants we have made and to the covenants we have kept or broken. To the sacred commitments which call forth the best in us, require daily practice, and an acknowledgement that we will inevitably mess up from time to time, not because we don't care. This isn't about a careless dealing with our covenants, but because we care enough to keep doing better. One of the most prominent features of Yom Kippur services is the haunting melody of the Kol Nidre prayer. In fact, some call the service simply the Kol Nidre. It is a service meant to move people to introspection and a spiritual reckoning of sorts with what we have done or left undone. What do we need to let go of to hold on to life? How have we fallen short? How can we make amends? Are we willing to forgive? What commitments no longer make sense? What commitments move us towards our heart's true longing? However, the Kol Nidre is not so much a prayer as it is a sung legal declaration about renouncing all vows and oaths. This would seem to run completely counter to the holiday. Many believe the Kol Nidre became part of the liturgy in response to Jews being forced to convert to other religions like Christianity, or else face persecution or even death. There is an energy in that part of the service that our words matter and have power, and that people must be free and not coerced into making false promises. There is also a sense of renewing the commitments that we are freely choosing with this fresh start. It's not about being freed from promises, but rather being free to make meaningful promises. The practice of creating covenants in our worshiping communities goes way back, and some point to our spiritual ancestors in the 1600s. And one often studied covenant is the Cambridge Platform of 1648. While the language would seem very unfamiliar to many of us who are here today, there are recognizable aspects. It's a voluntary agreement, or at least it's supposed to be. The Puritan forebears certainly coerced many people, so think of it a little with Tandaica's caution. They had the idea of being voluntary, where their practice was quite apart from it. When we look at it today, we can see some of the kernels of now, including the importance of a gathering of people moving in the ways of love. They use the word walking together to describe that movement, and the word love appears 18 times in the document. The word admonish, which feels a little more Puritan, also appears 7 times, and it's worthy of note. In the Cambridge Platform, as with the Jewish high holidays, there is a recognition that we will break our vows, and we need encouragement to take them seriously. Breaking a vow in and of itself is not an excuse to do it again. Well, I just can't get kindness right, so maybe I'll give up. No. We can always start anew and imagine how truly being kind would shift all of our relationships. When we put our faith not just in God or in love itself, but in people's ability to carry out God's or love's will, which we do know that we will make mistakes. We are imperfect vessels, and yet we are also the very ones that love, truth, wisdom, hope, and the like interdepend upon for existence in this world. Admonish has a number of meanings: to advise, to warn, yes, also to reprimand, and it carries with it 2 significant points we might consider in this season. One, that we need others to reveal more and more truth, and we need their help to faithfully live out a covenant. Our spiritual forebears practiced advising each other, and actually congregations practiced advising one another as a whole on how to best fulfill their promises. This isn't altogether different from today when we reflect on our covenants at the end of a children's RE class or youth group or a board meeting or a small group or as a community of the whole. When we ask questions like, how are we doing at practicing those promises in our covenant? is there something missing from our actions? Is there something missing from the covenant? And that is the beauty of a covenant. It is compelling. It pulls us toward fulfilling it, and it also can and must change over time. We call it a living document. This practice of discernment and advising over time ultimately led to such sweeping changes that the Cambridge platform of the Puritans, through evolutions and revolutions, can be traced all the way to the 8 principles of Unitarian Universalists in 2022. Now, our 8 principles would be unrecognizable to those who participated in those congregations in the 1600s. But like we do, they might find kernels that remain the same, as well as what has been lost or gained. No, who am I kidding? They would be turning over in their graves. But that is how it should be. We are not a conservative or conserving tradition. We are a liberal and open tradition. Change is a part of our practice, including changing our covenants. That doesn't mean that we take new promises or the renewal of promises less seriously. We hope that they will lead us to freely to choose love, which is ultimately about a commitment to liberation. The All-Together quilt is also a story of a community formed through a regular practice of stitching together a diverse, multi-generational community's lives. While we heard the story of one particular quilt, it is actually the story of 14 years of practice now of co-creating many quilts and relationships, of mentoring more than admonishing, of relating to a whole larger than any of the pieces, but where all the pieces are seen and give shape to something beautiful. In the story, they try out different things and fitting pieces in different ways. Quilting and covenanting isn't something that you know how to do without practice. And as their community has grown more diverse in age, gender identity, race, culture, class, and experience, through months and years of dedication to creating new quilts, what has happened is new insights and increasingly inclusive ways of allowing the lives and the artists in the room to reflect and act upon the wholeness and beauty moving amidst the brokenness of our world has poured forth. Our prayer is this: may we too be open to build upon our past wisdom and our past promises. May we invite the evolutions and revolutions that ultimately pull us towards our heart's true longing. May we be co-creators of community, and may we learn ever onward how to begin again in love. Amen, and may it be so. And now, in our going, may the light of love bless us and keep us. May it shine down upon us. May it radiate out from within us. May it be gracious unto us and grow our ability to choose life. For this is the day that we are given, so let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace. Practice love even when it isn't easy. Amen.